What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 44 of Convos on the Pedicab. I'm here with an old friend of mine, Andrew Alameo, or Andrew Mao on Facebook. We're going to definitely talk about that. He's Andrew's best known for throwing not one, but two tomatoes at Donald J. Trump.
Yeah, that happened.
What's up with the mask?
So Black Lives Matter. Never gonna stop saying it.
I mean, I'm glad that you're wearing a mask so that everyone can know that you feel Black Lives Matter. That's very touching and virtuous of you.
That is
very
why I'm wearing
kind.
the mask today.
We're
outside. That's
have you heard of Everybody Yoga Studios?
Where are they located?
Everybody Yoga Studios, since you're wearing a mask that says Black Lives Matter and you care so much about the black community, is the first black-owned yoga studio in Austin, Texas. It is on like 12th and Chicone, around that area near Sam's Barbecue. A also phenomenal black-owned barbecue place that's been around for over 50 years.
That's very cool. Thanks for telling me that.
Yeah.
I don't pretend to know about every black business in Austin.
I know. I understand. But my buddy Chris Isom, he used to be a pedicab driver. He's like really phenomenal fitness trainer, and he is a yoga practitioner also, and he opened up a yoga studio, and it's the first black-owned yoga studio in Austin, Texas. They do things based on like scholarships and financial needs, and they're doing like a really, really good job of like getting yoga and healthy living and like sustainable like food production and proper nutrition and all this stuff like into the black community, where a lot of that stuff has been very negligent. And you talk about like how black people have like gotten suffered higher rates of like COVID deaths and hospitalizations, and like access to proper nutrition and access to like exercise and certain healthy practices are not like as prevalent because of a lot of institutional factors. And my buddy Chris is doing a really good job of bridging that gap so that stuff like that doesn't happen in the future.
Way to go, Chris.
So Everybody Yoga Studios is on 12th and Chicone. So you wearing that mask is going to help blow up my buddy's yoga studio. So thank
Excellent.
you.
Glad I could help. If I ever start doing yoga, that's where I'm gonna go.
You should go. It's really cool actually, and it's very open, very like friendly, like really cool spot. I had him in my pedicab once, and we talked about a whole bunch of like stuff with like fitness and training and masks and all that stuff. How do you feel about the BLM protest? And since we're on the subject of Black Lives Matter, like how did you feel about that whole thing that went down?
Well, I was watching Unicorn Riot live when they burned down the police station in Minneapolis, and I remember them talking about how that's something that hasn't happened in like well over 100 years in the United States. I just think we need to see more of that kind of thing, because police violence is an ongoing problem in the United States. It's been going on for way longer than we've had the capacity to be able to record it on a moment's notice. Yeah. And only just now are police starting to face even the slightest consequences for their actions. In fact, just earlier this week, we saw that Austin police officer Christopher Taylor was actually indicted by a grand jury for killing Mike Ramos last year. It's been a long time coming. Finally happened. Of course, he was only in jail for about 32 minutes before he was able to get bonded out. His bond was set for $100,000. Usually, and he was indicted on first-degree murder charges. Usually, first-degree murder charges comes with a much higher bond than that. In fact, even accessory to first-degree murder comes with a bond that's about twice as high as that, more often than not. And so even when it looks like we're getting justice, we're still not getting justice.
Yeah, I saw the Ramos video. And I'll go into that, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure, based on seeing that video, that that actually was first-degree murder. But I'll tell you this: like, it was really bad policing, and that person should not be on the street being a police officer ever again after that. I'll say that. But I just learned. I went to this thing called like Float Fest, which was this like it was basically an outdoor festival celebrating the launch of a new social media app called like Float, which is just an alternative to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, like all these like monopoly type companies, you know what I mean, that are trying to dominate the discourse, and is trying to like create a new frame of discussion, and is trying to like create a situation where things are a little bit more decentralized, and we work towards like common solutions for or like innovative solutions for the problems that we're dealing with are like discussed like in an open and free way so that we can change our society in a manner that's like more pro-human and not like turning us more into a technocracy that's happening right now. You know what I mean? But one of the things I learned about was this project called the Thick Red Line. And the Thick Red Line project is basically, I'll give you this little card because I have a whole bunch of these, but it's basically a thing where there are certain police officers and sheriff's departments that will have a line about certain laws they won't enforce. And that line right now is pretty much kind of held at gun control and gun confiscation. And the goal is it's like a community activist organization to try to push the line a little bit, to continue pushing that red line forward. So that, you know, gun confiscation, and I think it actually went a little bit forward this year with the COVID stuff. You know, gun confiscation, it went to mask wearing. You know what I mean? It went to, like, enforcing quarantines. And it went to, like, you know, doing stuff like that. And I think that, like, one of the things I actually liked about APD was the fact that they really didn't enforce these bullshit stay-at-home orders, and they didn't really enforce the business closures, like, as much as they could have. And they didn't do anything to enforce the forced mask-wearing stuff. And I'm just like, this actually kind of gives me hope in a way that, you know, maybe our police department, with community input, are going to continue moving more and more forward towards not enforcing these victimless crimes. And ultimately the goal is like, hey, don't arrest people for smoking weed, you know, don't arrest people for prostitution, because the violence that occurs when like a girl has to pay a pimp and all that stuff is a lot worse. And it's basically kind of stuff like that about pushing the envelope further and further so that the things that our police department does enforce are designed to actually keep people safe.
Okay.
So it's the Thick Red Line project.
It's the Overton window of what police should and shouldn't be allowed to police.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, we talked a lot about that at this festival, and I always thought that there should be like more collaboration between like these like libertarian groups and like the BLM groups when it comes to that stuff. Because I think there's so many people, everyone's on the same page about this shit on so many levels that like it kind of made me frustrated watching this stuff, watching like what went down this summer. Whereas like it felt like if you disagreed with like everything that like the BLM narrative was saying, they would just exclude you or push you out or yell at you, instead of like say, hey man, that's actually a good idea. We should like do that.
I'd like to respond to that. I was part of the movement this past summer, and what I noticed is that there were lots of other groups trying to co-opt that movement, either toward the right, the left, and when I say the right, I'm talking mostly about like Boogaloo Boys. There were quite a few of them that would show up, and they would never really make their intentions very clear about who they were there for. You know, it wouldn't have been very hard for them to say we're here. Some of them did say we're here because Black Lives Matter, but we could never get entire sort of like cadres of Boogaloo Boys to come out and explicitly say who they were there for.
But this whole thing was so fragmented that there's so many even groups in the left that are like in fragment with each other. Just like there's a bunch of groups on the right, and it's like it's kind of fucked up where they like try to, you know, put everyone into like this group like, oh, you're QAnon, you know what I mean? And then it's like, oh, you're a fucking communist, or it's like, oh, you're this or you're that, and it's like these things are a lot more.
I am a communist.
Yeah, I know, and we'll talk about why it's a horrible ideology later on in the show.
Okay.
But the point of the matter is everyone's so quick to put everybody into boxes that it doesn't really like let people actually have a discussion and understand like, hey man, there's like a lot of common grounds that a lot of people deal with, and we should be addressing these common grounds first, you know?
Okay, I agree.
That's my take on that, you know, like that's really how I feel. And I saw you at the what did I see you at? On Wednesday I saw you, right?
The rally to vaccinate the essential workers.
Yeah, it was the rally to keep the businesses at like half capacity and keep these mask mandates until more essential workers get vaccinated. And I wasn't going to like counter protest that shit. I honestly was just going because I wanted podcast guests, because I talked to you about this earlier. What? Which I succeeded. But I really wanted to go to. I really think like that particular protest is kind of silly because A, it's not going to change Abbott's mind, and B, there's so many businesses in Austin, especially in like East Austin and certain other locations, that are just going to comply with the mask mandates anyway, and the people that are going out on like 6 and West 6 and all that stuff haven't been following any of the rules anyway. So it just seemed like that whole thing was, in my opinion, an exercise of futility. And then to counter protest is just fucking stupid, because I think the idea of counter protesting is a pretty silly thing anyway. Because if you want to protest something that you're pissed off about, like, you should just go protest what you're pissed off about, and then if I'm pissed off about something else, I'll protest that because that's what makes America such a great country.
Well, I want to respond to several points that you made there. So, if I were an essential worker right now, and that does give away that I am in fact not an essential worker.
Right.
I would want to be placed higher on the vaccine list.
Are you? So what? Are you not? Are they not placed highly on the list? Then?
I don't believe that they are, or at least workers that might be considered essential to their employers, but aren't considered essential to the government, because they don't work at HEB or whatever. But
they're not gonna be.
But their place of employment is still open. They might work at a restaurant or whatever, and so certain people might argue they're not essential, but they're not getting paid to stay home, and their employer is not getting paid to shutter their business. So for all intents and purposes, they are essential.
Yeah, and it's kind of fucked up that you're shuttering all these businesses and not paying the businesses a just amount of compensation to keep themselves closed. And then it's like when you got a bunch of people like Kassar or whatever that are saying we got to keep everything closed, and you're not really as vocal about trying to pay the businesses. It looks a little hypocritical, bro. It takes a lot of credibility away.
You can't expect people to close down if you're not going to pay them to stay home.
Yeah, there you go. I'm glad we're on the same page. Yeah.
And our neoliberal government under the Biden administration, Joe Biden, whom I did not vote for, we can talk about that later. I've noticed this trend amongst the Democratic Party, where problems that are institutional, they try to fix with sort of individualized solutions, like wear a mask. I'm going to take mine off right now because I'm outside and I only wore this to virtue signal, as you'd probably call it. But
and we all know that you are by far the most virtuous podcast guest that I've ever had.
Okay, thank you. But, where was I getting? Okay, so the Democratic Party's whole solution to COVID is we're going to roll out vaccines, which is good. Everyone needs vaccines. I mean, not everyone. I mean,
everyone who wants a vaccine.
Everyone who wants a vaccine. I'm not here to mandate that there are vaccines. Get one if you want to.
Yeah.
I'm going to get one once I'm eligible. But and then masks.
Yeah.
And so the thing about that is both of those are individual solutions. Like, we're not addressing the fact that we were failed on a systemic and institutional level when it came to COVID-19. And it honestly goes beyond just the Trump administration's ineptitude. I mean, that was a huge part of it, but that wasn't the whole story. And so what Joe Biden could be doing right now is paying everyone to stay home for 2 weeks to a month. And if you want to, you can gather in your friend's backyard. You know what I mean? Or I'm not saying that if you went to their house, police should get involved. I'm just saying use your fucking head. And so we ended up with a situation where there is over 500,000 people in the U.S. dead from COVID because we didn't want to approach a systemic problem on a systemic level. That's where we're at.
You want to talk about systemic problems?
Mm-hmm.
Another big systemic problem we have is obesity in the United States. And 78%, from the CDC, of people who had severe hospitalizations from COVID
mm-hmm.
were obese and had BMIs over 15.
And we can talk about the systemic reasons for why people are obese.
Yeah, and that's why we got my boy's studio, Everybody Yoga Studio, trying to help curb some of these systemic reasons. So go hit up Chris Ice. They're not even sponsoring me yet. So shit.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, I'm just being a good friend, man. I'm just trying to bridge the gap to more equality.
I feel bad about the T-shirt I'm wearing now.
What does it say?
Well, okay. I assumed we were going to talk about cancel culture at some point.
We are definitely going to talk about that shit.
All
That's
right.
yeah. That's the thing that needs to be canceled is cancel culture. But
there
are a lot of health
thoughts
issues
on that, but we'll get to it. I guess
there are also a lot of health issues, and we got to do a better job. We need to do a better job of feeding sustainably grown food from places like JBG to our school kids. You know what I mean? Or we need to
Yeah, child lunch debt is how do you even have a thing such as child lunch debt?
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. That's crazy that you have to
that
pay.
shouldn't exist.
Yeah, that shouldn't
and every
exist.
once in a while you see these happy news stories about how like one kid raised enough money selling like doohickeys so that he could pay off his entire class's child lunch debt. And it's like,
They shouldn't even be child. Why should you have debt for
what the
a
fuck
kid
kind of
going to
dystopia
lunch?
is this?
That is that's a nightmare. Yeah, that's pretty fucked up. That's extremely fucked up. But like, you want to talk about systemic issues too? Like this COVID-19 was like literally the biggest financial opportunity in fucking history. In our lifetimes. This is the biggest financial opportunity of our lifetimes. But we were so fucking stupid and brainwashed that the majority of us did not capitalize on it, and many of us are a lot worse off. Not me, thank God. As a result of like shitty financial education, not understanding how to invest, not understanding like what the value of how this is affecting the value of the dollar and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Like in March, the stock market was literally at a fucking bottom, right? And if you were buying like Apple or Facebook or like any of these tech companies, which I hate to be that guy, but I had a little money saved up, and
We're gonna talk about stocks.
we can talk about that a little bit. Yeah, well, we'll bring that up. And just I bought a little bit of Bitcoin. I got some stimulus stuff. Bought some Bitcoin with it. So but most people weren't thinking about that. Everyone was just yelling at each other and arguing and going at each other's throats, divided. When you literally, if people were just buying Bitcoin if they could, or buying like stocks if they could, or doing something along those lines. It's not perfect. Not everybody can do that, but a lot more people were able to than actually did. People could be in a much better place as a result of this virus.
Sure, there's a lot of individual things that I guess people could do to like not be falling through the cracks right now, but at a certain point, if there's enough individuals slipping through the cracks, individual explanations for why that happens don't really cut it. And like sure we could have taught them to invest properly, but like
why not do it now?
Whatever happened, yeah, I mean, sure we could do it now, but whatever happened to like if you have a job that you work at, you have enough money to, pay your rent, feed your family, maybe even like save up for a vacation. That used to be the way things were at one time, at least in white America. That's really the only people I should be speaking
and then a lot of
for.
our manufacturing jobs got sold overseas and sold to China and all that stuff because of neoliberalism, and then that starts changing, and then we print money, we print assloads of money that go to God knows what. Foreign aid, national defense, a bunch of things that we don't really see any benefit towards. And then, the value of our dollar goes down and wages kind of stagnate. And the only thing that goes up are stocks. And most people don't understand how to invest in those stocks. So a lot of people more and more people just get left behind.
Don't.
I started learning about a lot of that stuff these past couple years. So we could talk about some of that afterwards,
the only thing I have to say about the stock market is that everyone on Wall Street should be up against the wall. I should admit that I did buy like $50 worth of AMC stock, but I kind of did it when it peaked.
Oh,
and so I lost that $50.
It's okay. You're holding the line though, dude. That was a social movement. But what happened with GameStop and AMC and Dogecoin and all that stuff, like that is a social movement. That is literally beating these fuckers at capitalism. And then they shut down the fucking markets when we did it, so it just shows that we don't even live in a real capitalist country after this fucking GameStop shit happened.
Well, see, the idea, the whole like end result of a free market is that like if there's no regulation, that's something that the big boys get to do. When you strip regulation away from capitalism, and I'm not arguing capitalism is a good system to begin with, but if you're going to have it, it has to be regulated for it to work at all.
Okay, but then who's regulating? What if the big boys are the guys that are regulating it, or they're the ones paying people off to regulate it? So then how do you regulate it? Don't.
Yeah,
just let people go.
That's exactly the problem.
Then just let shit go and buy Bitcoin and buy crypto and create your own decentralized currency, so you don't have to deal with this shit.
The way I understand it, the way they mine Bitcoin is unsustainable and is actually accelerating climate change, which maybe you don't believe in either.
Says fucking Bill Gates, the guy who takes private jets.
He's not the only guy saying that. In fact, I didn't even know he was saying that. Climate change scientists are saying that.
You know what? That may be the case, but I feel as though we do so many worse things to our environment than mine Bitcoin.
Apparently, it's getting worse though, and the more people buy Bitcoin, the less
The more you gotta mine it
is.
and all that, whatever. I don't buy any. I think that just sounds like a crock of shit to keep people poor and stuff. But that sounds like a crock of bullshit. But anyway, what I'm saying though
You
is
can
that
research this.
Okay, I will. But Bitcoin also has a finite number of coins that can be mined at some point. Like eventually, the mining will stop. Like every 4 years.
Another reason why it's not sustainable.
Well, that's why you can buy it now. And there are other alternative cryptocurrencies too. Bitcoin is not the only.
This is more of the same capitalist mindset that has gotten us where we are right now.
I think this is a way to free ourselves from this system that we're in, or it's at least giving people an opportunity to free themselves. And the playing field is a lot more equal now than it was. Like when I was at this festival, there were a whole bunch of just regular ass people, just like you and me, who knew what was up. Were independent thinkers and bought into this new currency back in 2012, and now like their lives are changed irreparably. And these are the types of people these are people that are like community oriented. They share. They want to have they want us to eat real food. They want us to have freedom. They want us to have autonomy. Like these are the types of people that you want to be the new. There's always going to be a new ruling class, a new a new money class, like each time and time again. That's going to continue happening, right? Like. These are the people that you want to be the guys at the top of the food chain from having talked to these people. You know, like these are people that you want on the top of the food chain. So it's like,
to me, Bitcoin is like Herbalife for dudes who get naked at Burning Man.
Whatever. Then I guess I'll get naked. I'm getting naked at Burning Man.
There's nothing wrong with getting naked at Burning Man.
Honestly, I don't even have that much Bitcoin. Like,
let's not pretend it's not like a multi-level marketing scheme.
I don't think it is though.
I mean, it may not function like one, but
every
the end result's going to be the
so
same.
years, like they always change that. And my last guest brought this up. Like, a country is always going to like change its currency. Like every 300 or so years, like a monetary system always winds up dying and being replaced by something else. So I think
we have one that won't kill us with the emissions, though? That's all I'm saying.
I mean, I think it's got to be decentralized, and it can't be something like the SDR or something like that. So I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot to work on, but I think that there's also so many alternative cryptocurrencies that are coming out there that it gives a lot more people a lot more agency as to what they can buy, how they can buy things, how they can engage in commerce, how they can like support one another and do it without having to be robbed blind of their assets and stuff. I think it's a very positive movement that should be nurtured and developed.
Okay.
We agree to disagree. So what the hell else were we talking about? We were talking about the protests. We were talking about
let's see.
We went off on a lot of tangents, which is pretty cool.
We were talking about cancel
culture.
You told me you wanted to talk about cancel.
I do.
Culture.
Talk about it. So you're being canceled too.
Oh, is that true?
You said it on the phone. You can't post on Facebook, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I am post-blocked on Facebook.
What'd you do?
I got into an argument with someone in the comment section, probably called them a name. It doesn't even really...
So, well, like,
I mean,
what
it's like, at this point, it's like the third or fourth time that this has happened because I don't ever learn my lesson.
So they're not just blocking right-wing journalists. They're blocking everybody who disagrees with the mainstream narrative.
In their defense, I did completely violate their terms of service.
What are the terms of service, though?
Oh, not to like bully people. I think I just called someone stupid or like maybe a dumb cunt or something. Like I shouldn't call people.
I know you're allowed to call people whatever you want. They're just your actions have consequences.
Yes, that is. Yeah,
For the person who called you that, but I don't think Facebook should block you from speaking because you said something that they don't like.
What upset me most about it is it happened during the winter storm, and so it's a 30-day ban, and so like if I had needed like help with fortunately I had power throughout that storm, and as a result they're trying to raise the rent where I live.
I mean that's why that's why you got to try to own your own fucking house so you don't have to deal with this shit.
Oh, okay. never occurred to me I could just pay a bank instead of a landlord. But,
yeah, there you go.
Where were we talking? Oh, so during the storm, I got someone on Facebook was trying to was in an argument with my friend saying that it was like green energy that failed our grid, and it's all the wind generators' fault that ERCOT failed or whatever. Even though windmills
using wind in Canada and Sweden and every other developed
country.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so I exchanged words with her, and she didn't change her opinion. And so I probably called her a misogynistic slur I shouldn't have called her. And I'm kind of sorry about that, but she's being dumb.
But there it goes. When you disagree with someone, people yell at each other and call each other names instead of having conversation about why you disagree with why you disagree.
It's a slur. It's a slur that like I kind of understand why Facebook is policing their use of it. To be honest with you, but
the B word.
I think. Yeah, I lost my. I never. I never call anyone the C word, and I did it. I know, I really don't, and I did it to this person because like the last thing I wanted to fucking see when I opened Facebook was someone regurgitating the bullshit that Governor Abbott told Sean Hannity on Fox News, and then Governor Abbott went on to tell more centrist newscasts that like it was a combination of natural gas and solar and wind that failed, which is barely even the truth.
So the Biden administration did put out something like some kind of like emergency declaration.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have like all of it offhand, but they did say that like they were going to charge like a lot of extremely high fees for like ERCOT and the states to like produce excessive amounts of power for the purpose of climate change. So like the Biden administration did like write some kind of emergency declaration that like prevented ERCOT from producing the amount of power that could have possibly been necessary to divert this. Like I read the whole declaration. I'll send it to you because I might not have it all fully correct.
Sounds like a right-wing talking point. I'd be very suspicious of that.
Sure,
I'm not here to defend Joe Biden.
No, I understand. Look. I got the story on Infowars, but
yeah, you did.
But
okay.
but there was still a link to the actual.
I know, the atrazine does turn the frogs.
There actually is shit about that too, and we'll talk. Hold on, let me.
It turns the frogs transgender. There's a difference.
No, but the chemicals that you put in your water does fuck with your sexual reproductive organs, and it does fuck with your sex drive, and it does fuck with a lot of things that you're dealing with. And they're putting the same chemicals in the fucking water that we drink as human beings, and they put all the same chemicals.
Frogs are naturally transgender. They go back and forth without any chemicals.
I've sent you a whole bunch of shit about this. They did an article on BuzzFeed. They wrote an article in BuzzFeed. I wish we were live. We could pull this up, but like they wrote an article in BuzzFeed talking about how like the chemicals and atrazine and the stuff they put in our water supply literally prevents like amphibians from having fucking erections. Like it's bad. Like he's not wrong on that. That's why it's crazy. Like it's actually kind of true. But anyway, what I was saying though about and I'm not trying to like fanboy for Alex Jones right now, but there are times when he's right. And that happens to be one of them. What we were saying was the fact that I may have gotten this thing about Biden's directive on Infowars, but there was a link to his actual directive from like the whitehouse.gov, and I read that pamphlet from the whitehouse.gov. So that's where I'm coming with that. And I'll send it to you, and you can let me know how you feel about it after I send it to you.
The way I understand it is that there are certain power plants in Austin and throughout the state of Texas that typically only are ever used in the summertime when they're needed for cooling. And because it's not profitable to run them during the wintertime. So the way I understand it, they could have been turned on at any point to help generate power during the storm, but because it was not profitable to do so, those plants remained not producing any power.
It was a shit show. And then our water pipes, we haven't updated our water pipes in like 50 years either. Like this whole thing is it's a fucking joke. But we were talking about, I want to go back to the reopening, the protesting, right? Mm-hmm. And you were saying like with the essential workers and vaccines and all that stuff, right? Yeah. And like, so I got a couple points about this, right? Okay. So when I work downtown, right, like a lot of the people I know that work downtown, right? Because I'm like giving rides to people on Rain Street, 6th Street, whatever, right? I got a ton of people that I know from jiu-jitsu that bounce, that work in these bars. And they fucking hate the mask shit. Mm-hmm. They're all like, fuck this mask. It just gives them another thing that they have to babysit these people for without getting extra money for it. And it also, these capacity limits also fuck with their tips. So it's like you got a group of people like the DSA that care about worker rights and bridging income inequality. These fucking mandates are literally making the income inequality worse because it's not letting these guys get fucking tipped out the way they should get tipped out. And a lot of these guys are fucking amped about the shit being lifted because now they're going to get paid out the fucking ass because everyone's going to go out. So there's like that other side of the spectrum that it's like just got conveniently ignored when everyone was at the state capitol.
Sure. There are always, I don't blame any service industry employee who doesn't want to have to deal with the mask mandate, because people are assholes in this state, and they don't a lot of them don't want to wear masks. To me, the way I look at it is every store, gas station, whatever that you walk into, there's already a sign on the door that says you got to wear shoes and you got to wear a shirt. And to me, like,
wearing a shirt doesn't fuck with your oxygen intake and blood oxygen levels. Okay.
Yeah, but very rarely is anyone going to like contract a serious disease because you didn't wear a shirt. So the way I look at it is like a mask is probably even more important to wear in a store than a shirt.
I shouldn't have to wear a shirt either, bro. Like, I'm kind of pissed about that too. So like,
I mean, I think you could make the case that shirts are less necessary than masks if you want to.
I think they're equally unnecessary.
Well,
but anyway,
I don't know. Talk to
here.
some health inspectors, because I don't know anything about this. It's just like, to me, it's just like, so under capitalism, which is not the system I wanted to live in, but here we are. We give businesses the power to determine who is and isn't allowed in their store based on things like dress code and really anything.
Yeah.
I mean, and so essentially, if you don't want businesses saying you have to wear a mask to come in the store, then I guess you want a socialist revolution, which I want.
I never said that. I think that the business can do whatever the hell it wants.
I know.
And it's my job as a customer to choose whether I frequent that business.
Yeah, that's.
I don't. That's why, like, when Abbott made this order, he didn't stop businesses from like being able to enforce their own mask mandates. He just stopped them from being able to get in trouble, and it give them one less bullshit thing that they have to do in an extremely difficult year for anybody who owns a small business.
I mean, I understand that.
My grievance with Abbott is the fact that he waited this fucking long to do it.
My grievance with Abbott is that he wanted all
for
this.
For this issue. I dislike him for a lot of other things.
Well, sure. Yeah. He decided that all the schools should open, but he didn't want to open the Capitol to tours. If things are safe enough that we can put a bunch of, like, I don't know what people say that children don't get COVID, but like around the age where they go through puberty, they start getting it, and they start able to to spread it. And we still opened like our middle schools and our high schools and all that. And
I don't think kids should be wearing masks, but we're going to talk about that afterwards.
What's that?
I don't think kids should be wearing masks.
Well, I mean, they can get and spread COVID.
That's cool. I think that they have to do a better job of revamping the education system so that we have smaller classes and we do more outdoor learning. We live in a state where it's summertime 7 months out of the year. We can't start learning outside more.
What do you think about the fact that they didn't even want the Capitol open, but they wanted schools open?
Well, the Capitol's been open for a minute.
Not as long as the schools have. They just opened the Capitol.
They should have opened the Capitol earlier. I think they should have opened.
Why do you do you not see any hypocrisy between?
It's
safe enough.
It's
safe enough to send the teachers back to school.
I think we've seen extreme amounts,
but it's not safe enough that we can give tours.
I think that hypocrisy is something that we're just so used to on such a big level that maybe that's extremely hypocritical. But I think
I bet you still have to wear a mask in the Capitol. Am I right?
Honestly, I don't know. Let's go to the Capitol one day and find out.
Governor's Mansion tours?
I'll find out. We'll find out. I think that is hypocritical. I think that's extremely hypocritical. I fully agree with you. That's super hypocritical. I'm not defending that shit.
Yeah.
But I think that I guess that just got overlooked based on all the other hypocritical stuff that we saw. It's like everyone's saying, "Hey, don't gather. You're going to spread COVID." And then we had a bunch of protests where 15 million people gathered next to each other, and all of a sudden, that was okay and encouraged, even though it's for a good cause, right? Like,
I mean,
it was for a good cause.
If you're outside.
Yeah, but people were still coughing on each other. There was tear gas. A lot of people didn't have masks on. And then when they had the reopen protests and the reopen rallies, everyone was calling those super spreader events before the BLM stuff was happening, and they were outside. So it was just hypocrisy. Or then the governor of California is like, everything's closed, right? He closed the restaurants, but he's dining maskless at the French winery with a bunch of donors and fundraisers. Yeah. Or Adler's telling everyone to stay home, and then he's flying on a private jet to Cabo for a wedding, and then add insult to injury, he's on a private jet, and you pushed a fucking $7 billion rail because we're in a climate emergency, and then you're flying on a private jet to fucking Cabo, bro? Like, come on, man. We've been seeing hypocrisy left and right, that maybe that one thing was something I overlooked because of all the egregiousness, all the egregious
I agree with everything you're saying. My take
on it
is that as a socialist, I'm just watching the ruling class essentially say, do as we say, not as we do.
Yeah.
And,
but then, like,
and it's Republicans, it's I mean, you don't hear it as much from Republicans because, well, there's a whole culture war about whether or not, like, and we're on different sides of this, and that's fine.
Yeah, and I think I've actually done a pretty good job of being able to still keep my friendships intact, which I'm pretty proud of.
Yeah, I mean, you're not as much of a dick about it as you could be, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. I don't think I'm a dick about it at all. I think I have my opinions, and I try to be respectful, and I share these as lots.
I threw too much shade there.
Yeah,
I like teasing you,
yeah,
but I don't remember where I was going to go with that. Oh, yeah, we still haven't talked about... What, are we talking about cancel culture?
Yeah, so you got canceled from the fucking...
oh, yeah, okay.
You can't post on Facebook because you said something. But it's just a beta test, dude. It's like it all started when they canceled Alex Jones, and then, now they're going to cancel more and more people that disagree with the narrative, and then that's just what's happening, so... What
I see... So, there's part of me that thinks cancel culture is good. And there's also part of me that thinks that cancel culture is selectively used and weaponized.
I think it's more B, but yeah.
I understand why there's a lot more instances of B that like get traction in the news. But for instance, like let's talk about someone like say Marilyn Manson, right? Like it's weird because like in the 90s and early 2000s. The narrative that the media tried to sell us about Marilyn Manson was that he was responsible for school shootings. And while that turned out not to be really true, he was responsible for raping and abusing multiple women. And he's only just now coming around and actually having to deal with consequences. Former band members are saying that they left the band and they don't want anything to do with him, and that they were witnesses to some of it, and I think that's good. Like
I think that's good. I think that's
you
good.
Don't want abusers
no.
having access to.
But then what about and then we got to keep that line further. Like Chelsea Handler went to dinner parties with Jeffrey Epstein, but she's fucking lecturing us on how we got to behave and conduct ourselves. Bill Gates is fucking not to go on that guy all the time, but this guy is trying to dictate the public health narrative, and we're supposed to be taking fucking scientific advice from this computer nerd. And he's flown with Epstein numerous times. Like him and Jeffrey Epstein had a philanthropic business arrangement that dated back for like decades. And it's like, why is that not being investigated? Why aren't you canceling him? Like, man, it's just...
I do think that there are certain people who had connections with Jeffrey Epstein that like... So obviously, if you're Jeffrey Epstein, your goal with trying to get powerful people in your circle is if you can get them to like fuck a kid, you own that powerful person
exactly
forever.
How it is. That's how it is.
So, I know, and so I do think that Jeffrey Epstein was hanging out with every powerful person he could get to meet him, and not all of those people necessarily like. Were fucking kids because he's trying to get them to, and some of them, aren't inclined that way.
Yeah,
and
I don't think Bill Gates is one. Bill Gates flew on that plane. If you flew on the plane, you fucked a kid.
I'm not here to defend Bill Gates. Like I know that like Bill Clinton was like also on that plane and was also seen at that island. Like Bill Clinton's probably a fucking pedophile. I don't have any problem saying that. But
but you're right. That's actually a good perspective to think about. That like not everyone that hung out with him did that. You're trying to blackmail as many people as you can, and not everyone took the bait.
Yeah.
That actually is a good analogy.
Yeah.
So I actually appreciate that bringing that up because I was just like, oh, you're in a picture with Epstein, you're a fucking pedo.
No, I mean like
pedo. So that's a good way to like.
That was his MO.
Bring some perspective
to
that.
There's no way it worked 100%. I mean, I hope not. Like I don't know. Like. There's no way that once you just like reach $1 billion, you're just like instantly attracted to children. That can't be a thing, can it? I'm not gonna find out because I'm never gonna have $1 billion. But.
Yeah, that is kind of true, but it's like, I don't know, man. It's a weird dynamic. Or they're just like, hey, man, if you want to like get to this certain level or reach a certain strata of society, if you want to get pumped up to this political office, you better fuck this kid. I could see them doing that to like aspiring politicians.
But the other thing I wanted to say about cancel culture is I do think that the right wing is very angry that they don't have the same, like, I think the right wing would cancel more people if they had the means to do so. But since they really only have Fox News and I mean, they have Newsmax and OA, and I'm saying like the right wing only has that, but like, so like where people are getting canceled is like, for the most part, that's happening on Twitter, and like Twitter is, I mean, there's like it's owned by Jack Dorsey, but the people doing the canceling are just people on Twitter.
Dude, today's woke left is almost identical to the super right wing George Bush Republicans of the 1990s. They're just wearing blue now. Like it's no different. They just are like adopting identity politics and fake social justice to enact authoritarianism is what it's coming across as. And I honestly think that like
I've heard this take before, and there's parts of it that I agree with, and I guess I'd like need to see, I would like to hear what specifically you're referring to when you say this.
Well, I guess I'll give an example. I don't know how concrete it is, but like, did you see like the DNC online shit show convention this summer?
Yeah, I watched both the RNC and the DNC.
Yeah, I watched parts of it, right? And I just remember how like a lot of these like the same people that lied to get us into Iraq.
Oh
you
yeah,
know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
the same people
Okay.
that were like all about punishing people for smoking weed in the 90s and doing all this authoritarian shit.
Sure, yeah.
And a lot of these mainline Republicans were all in support of fucking Joe Biden.
People,
and I'm just like,
people like me,
interesting.
People like me get offended when you call those people the left.
I don't call those people the left.
When you say the woke left, I don't know. Is that is that not
yeah,
the left?
all right, that's my bad. But that's my fault.
Because I like to think that I'm, trying to be as woke as I can, and I'm a leftist. So, like, when I hear woke left, I was like, is that me?
No, I get that. I think, like I said, people get put into boxes.
I'm not as woke as I could be. I'm banned on Facebook for calling someone a cunt.
You think, hey, question. You think 9/11 was an inside job?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're pretty woke.
Yeah. I mean,
hey, you think we land on the moon?
I'm really glad you asked me about the moon landing. Here's what I think about the moon landing. I think our government hired Stanley Kubrick to direct the moon landing. And as we all know, that director is such a stickler for accuracy that he insisted that they shoot on location.
That's adorable. I've heard this before. All right. So you're
Wait,
half.
who'd you hear that from?
You told me this to me
right.
like 2 years ago. You told all this to me. So let's go back to the vaccines because we've been bouncing around from a whole bunch of things, right? Like, do you think the vaccine should be like mandated onto people? Like, how do you think that should work? Just give me your honest perspective on it.
Okay, so as an anti-capitalist, recognizing that for-profit companies are the ones who essentially are producing and distributing this. I mean, the government is distributing the vaccine, but you have for-profit companies who used publicly funded research money to. So part of the reason why the vaccine rollout is taking so long in the first place is because there's a lot of copyright laws that go into vaccines, and so like our government can't just like make generic versions of these vaccines because there's all these copyright laws, and so it takes. And I don't even think these copyright laws should apply in this instance because all these private companies like Johnson & Johnson and Moderna, they all used public funding to conduct the research necessary to actually make the vaccine. Like that was all public funding, and yet they still get to copyright it and profit off of selling it to our government, and so. And I realize I'm not really answering your question about whether or not I think it should be. I plan to. I'm taking the long route to get there.
No, take it. Do the quicker elevator pitch because
Okay.
I have a few more topics I want to talk about in the last
sure.
7 minutes. So let's.
In short, I don't think it should be mandatory because I don't think it should be mandatory to insist that you have to purchase a product from a private corporation for the same reason that like I don't like Donald Trump, but he struck down the individual mandate on Obamacare, and that was my least favorite part of the entire piece of shit legislation. And so I was like, thanks for fuck you, Trump, but thanks for I'm glad I don't have to pay because I'm too poor to fucking afford this dumb capitalist fucking insurance.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And I think that what he was trying to do with China and hold China accountable, even though he failed, I think it was a good step and a good thing that we should probably do.
When you say hold China accountable,
like for fair trade and all that stuff, right? But what the fuck was I saying? Do you think that somebody should be forced to put a a vaccine or a untested product into their body, which I mean, it has been contested, but it's not been tested
What?
like, as well as it should be. Do you think?
I said it
all right,
shouldn't have to be
it should never be mandatory. Okay, I just want to get that clear. Like, that you don't think that it should be mandatory to put a pharmaceutical foreign substance into your body without your consent or permission.
Yeah, I don't think that that's. But I guess like the flip side of that is like, do schools have the right to like, you know, make it mandatory to like, and then because like the other side of that, because for the most part, like I don't think we have any mandatory vaccines in this country, do we?
No, but you have to get like certain shots to go to like to go to school and stuff.
Sure, and
but
that's
you
the
know what?
schools
They're trying to
deciding
change
that.
that though. Like in other countries, they have like COVID passports now, or like other countries are saying you need to show your vaccine to go into a bar. Like they're trying to do shit like that in England. And like I don't want that to ever happen in the United States under any set of circumstances.
Well, what in that case, what you have are these like individual institutions, like private and public. Well, in a bar's case. You know, like that's a private business saying like you have to be vaccinated to come in here, and like we all agreed to that when we agreed to participate in capitalism.
I got you.
Know what I mean?
I think if the bar wants to do that, they're going to lose all their business and they're going to go under, and that's what's going to happen as a result of capitalism. I just don't think that the government should start legislating the fact that like, hey man, you need to have this vaccine passport in order to like go to bars.
But why do you
like that? Does that make sense? Like I don't think the government should start.
What groundwork is being laid for the government to make that mandatory? I haven't seen that.
I haven't seen that either, but I think that that's what a lot of people are scared of, and I think it's just something reassuring to know that somebody who's on the actual left and identifies as like a socialist and a communist is in agreement with those people. I think it's just comforting for people to understand that we're all kind of in agreement on that issue.
Yeah,
Does that make sense, Andrew?
Yeah, I don't think that any anything like that should be mandatory. But like, if these schools and stuff want to only have vaccinated kids, like that's a decision that they're allowed to make too.
Yeah, I guess, and I think people need to do a better job of being active in their school board meetings to prevent that shit from happening. That's my opinion, and I mean,
I am encouraging vaccination because I want things to when I say get back to normal, I sound like such a fucking liberal. But don't you miss being able to do a lot of the things that you used to be able to do?
I mean, I'm still doing a lot of the things I've.
But you can't. I don't know. Do you enjoy going to rock shows? I like going to rock shows.
Yeah, rock shows
I haven't
are
been
fun.
able to go to rock shows.
But should you have to have a vaccine or something to show that you can get into the rock show? Like that's.
I mean.
Or do you think that like enough people will voluntarily get the vaccine in
what
order to?
That's
which
what
I think. Yeah,
that's what I'd like to
the
see.
case. You know what I think they should do? And I talked to a ROM team about this one day, and I'm like, they should just they should forgive if you take the vaccine, they should just forgive your student debt if you take the vaccine. Like, no, I'm not even kidding. Like, people should just, no, like, you're laughing at me about this, but I think that, like, people should just hold this vaccine hostage and say, I'm not getting vaccinated until you forgive my student debt.
I'm laughing because it's, like, actually a really good idea. It's just, like, it's just, like, not something I can imagine, like, our current administration
Fuck the
ever
administration.
agreed
The administration
to.
doesn't give a shit about you.
I
But
know.
if enough of you guys all mobilize and say, hey, we're not taking that fucking vaccine until you forgive my student debt. Just you guys literally have no problem starting massive protests and massive rallies and making a scene. Make a scene about that. Everyone will fucking be down.
Yeah, that's actually a good policy demand, and this is part of the reason why I voted for you for mayor of Austin. You did have some loud policy points on your platform that I appreciated. And for that reason, I was okay with giving my vote to you.
I appreciate that. You know, you're the hero that we need but don't deserve.
Stop it.
But yeah, I also with the masks shit too. I've had like a bunch of school teachers in my cabin in my bachelor mobile, and with the fucking with like the elementary school kids. A lot of these kids like wind up trading masks with each other.
Well, they shouldn't do that.
Yeah, so it's like, is that really gonna like help public health when you have kids trading masks with each other?
No.
Or they're walking around like in masks constantly and they can't really see each other's faces while they're communicating, or they're like afraid of like their neighbor because they think that they might be giving them a disease. And like, what's that next generation gonna like be like when it comes to actually trying to communicate healthy solutions to our problems if this stuff continues for like the way it's continuing, man? Like you gotta that's gotta just be on the table to really think about. You know?
I mean the fact that a lot of like school age kids like haven't seen their friends for a full year is a tragedy, and it is going to like affect them as and that And that sucks, and that's a big problem. And I don't necessarily, because I want to go back to is it time to wrap this up? I hate to go back to this, but if we had just paid everyone to stay home for a month in from March to mid-April last year, this is not shit we'd still be dealing with. But we didn't do that, and so now we have to try a fucking shit ton of other things that don't work, and the kids are. They are bearing the brunt of it. They don't get to see their friends. They don't get to learn at school if that's a thing they like doing. I know like my girlfriend's kids like learning from home better than they like learning at school. So there's all kinds of kids.
I put it this way: a lot of these kids are gonna unlearn. There's also a lot of bullshit they teach in the school system that a lot of kids get to unlearn. And
sure.
If you're an active parent, you can start teaching your kid about the financial system. You can start teaching your kid about how fucked up the Federal Reserve is. And there's a lot of. You could also wake up. There could also be another generation of kids that are fucking woke as fuck that really have a broad understanding, but it's just going to be a big chasm of this. It's what's going to happen.
I don't like using Zoom meetings. So
I fuck Zoom. I ran for city council for a little bit, and I was mad that I had to do Zoom, and I got rid of that right after I dropped out to endorse a better candidate. But anyway, what I was before we wrap up, right?
You want to talk about the tomatoes?
Well, I guess we could talk about the tomatoes, but we got to go in a minute. What's up with what's up with the mound name? What's the deal with that? Before we go,
well, my last name's Alameo.
Okay.
The last three letters of which are MAO.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think of myself as a Maoist, but that doesn't mean.
What is a Maoist? In two sentences, what is a Maoist? Sorry, because we're pressed for time. I would let you talk about this all day. We're pressed for time.
A Maoist is probably someone who agrees with every single policy that Chairman Mao laid out in China. Everything from the Great Leap Forward to the Cultural Revolution.
Jesus Christ! All right.
What I personally appreciate about Chairman Mao is that he was anti-landlord. And I think that renting housing in this country is a fucking scam. And it doesn't matter how nice your landlord is, or how nice your property management company is. Renting housing to people is a scam. And the reason, and I know you're looking at me well, could you afford to own? But when you have people owning multiple properties that they're all renting out, that actually drives up the price of a home if you're trying to buy one, because you're literally creating artificial scarcity. I went out walking around my neighborhood when the storm hit, when basically the entire city was shut down, and I was walking down North Lamar, which is obviously a very busy street normally.
Yeah.
And there's an apartment complex on North Lamar and North Loop. And that whole area had power, and I know that because I had power, and everywhere around that area had power. But in this building, there was this large apartment building with probably hundreds and hundreds of units. There were probably only 6 or 7 actual rooms with lights on. And that struck me as super strange because there's no way that the other 93 tenants were just conserving electricity at 9:30 or 10 at night. Those were empty apartments.
Yeah, it's bad. And my
so
sister also owns a few properties in Philadelphia, so I'm just oh man, it's what it is.
Yeah, and so in Austin has this huge homelessness crisis, and we're dealing with it by moving them into hotels, but really we have unoccupied apartments we could be moving them into. It's not like we don't have homes available for the homeless population of Austin. But you know what? There's two kinds of people in this world. There's the sort of person who said, well, I had to go through a shitty thing, so therefore everyone else should have to. And then there's people who say, I went through a shitty thing, and I hope no one else ever has to go through that again. And the first kind of person who thinks that because they suffered, everyone else should have to, is the sort of person who's well, if I'm paying this much for my mortgage, why should some homeless person get housing for free? And it's well, because it's actually cheaper for the city. to house people than it is to
I don't
constantly
know,
respond
man.
to emergencies
I don't
on the
know,
street.
man. Because if we're spending $9 million per hotel that we're building, and it's also just attracting more homeless people from like all over the country.
Hotels are more expensive than apartments.
Yeah,
obviously.
I know, but I don't think our city's doing a very good job of addressing homelessness in a financially intelligent manner. And then there's also the fact that like when our city's throwing more and more and more and more and more and more and more money into homelessness, and like no money into like our bar industry and our restaurant industry and our bartenders and our musicians and the people that make up the culture.
When
of the
you
city,
say they're putting money into homelessness, what do you mean?
Yeah, when they defunded APD, $60 million of the $170 million went to homeless services.
Good.
Not a penny. No, how much money went to like our service industry?
Well, I mean, that's a different problem. Like,
But it could have been redistributed. Like you could have literally redistributed that money to our service, and you didn't. So it's like,
but
of
why
course,
why are we pitting homeless people against the service industry?
Why are
number one? One of the things that you're.
It just shows that the city doesn't give a fuck about the people that make up the dynamic of the city.
Some homeless people work in the service industry. 25% of homeless people actually have a job. So when you pit one against the other, you're actually like pitting some of those people. You're pitting against themselves. I don't feel like we have to do that. We can say like we can sit here and say what we're doing to house homeless people is good. We should also protect the service industry. Like making it like an either or situation is like that's how you lose. You know.
Sure, but we didn't even. But the fact that they didn't even make an attempt or even think about doing that, it's kind of fucked up. And the way the divisive neoliberal policies that our city's doing is doing that. It's our neoliberal fucking city council, these fake progressives. They're the ones that are doing that. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what that's my take on it. I'm glad you understand like how I feel on that issue.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck. I wish I didn't have to go.
Yeah, because we didn't even talk about Steven Crowder or to the tomatoes yet.
All right, talk about the tomatoes and Steven Crowder, and talk about how we can get a hold of you, and let's wrap it up.
You want me to? What do you want me to talk about first?
You have 2 minutes to talk about Crowder, and you have 2 minutes to talk about the tomatoes, and then we wrap.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll do the tomato thing first because it kind of
right.
Yeah. So before Donald Trump was even the Republican nominee, he came to Iowa, where I'm from. And I tried to rally my friends together to throw tomatoes at Donald Trump at the same time, and that way, because like what ended up happening was like I threw the tomato. I was the only one. My friends who were there with me ended up getting like hauled out of there by security before Donald Trump even made it to the stage. And so when he got on there and started talking shit about Bernie Sanders, I let him go. The second one kind of came close, but the first one I definitely missed. So anyway, I almost got away with it, but the Secret Service like demanded that the University of Iowa police like arrest me on the spot, and then they like searched me and they actually found a tomato seed in my jacket pocket. So I went to
busted.
Yeah, but like I know a lot of people from my hometown like to think that I like did it for the attention or whatever, but really I was trying to get away with it, and the only reason I got any attention is because I didn't.
Understand.
And so I did that because I like to think that if I were slightly better at sports and throwing things.
You didn't play any sports in high school?
Well, I mean, it's not that I didn't. It's just that I'm not good.
I understand.
And so, but also no, I really didn't.
Right.
I think I ran track like freshman year,
okay.
and then like found weed and didn't think sports were cool anymore.
Or you could find weed and also be an athlete. There's
I know there were plenty of those people, but for me, like getting high a lot and running a lot didn't really go anyway. But so yeah, had I focused more on sports, maybe Donald Trump wouldn't be president because the gif of him getting hit with fruit would have been so humiliating. And so I do kind of blame myself a little bit for his presidency, just because
if you had a better throwing arm.
I was off by a few inches with that second one, or at least that's my estimate based on like the RT video angle. But,
hey, it is what it is, man.
I'll
try to find that. I'll try to find it.
There's an RT video of it that's like probably like the best shot that you can find.
I'm gonna look that up. All right, Crowder, you have 1 minute to talk about Crowder. And then talk about how we can get a hold of you. Just go segue into it. Okay. Close the show out.
Okay, so Steven Crowder made a fake Facebook account so he could track me down and interview me about the tomato thing. But then, and I didn't know it was Steven Crowder, of course. He, I don't know. It's like some white chick with dreadlocks. I think he thought that I'd be into that, but if I had actually looked at any of this person's other photos, I would have realized that there weren't any. You know what I mean? But I didn't. You know. So it's like whatever. I'll meet up because I've done interviews about the tomato before. So I showed up at this coffee shop in my neighborhood that I was told to meet up at, and then here comes Steven Crowder.
You got catfished by Steven Crowder?
I got catfished by Steven Crowder. And he came in like dressed like the heat miser because he was mad that I had he had a table that said like rape culture is a myth, changed my mind, and I had shared it on Facebook like a year prior to this saying like I hope someone lights him on fire, and I totally didn't even remember it.
Oh, when he had the heat suit,
and then he came in and was like and I denied saying it because like I fucking don't even
You just forgot. You probably forgot. Okay.
You know what I mean?
And then he got all mad and stuff.
Yeah, he was like, "Yeah, you totally said that," and I was like, "Yeah, like who fucking like Googles themselves this much to find out what like." But apparently he was keeping tabs on me, and all he did was just like follow me around like North Austin for a while until I realized that he knew what my car looked like anyway.
Just and then fuck it.
No, I mean fuck that guy. And then also he went recently to a Planet Fitness. I don't know if it was in Austin, but he went dressed in drag, and then he like was doing this like weird like damsel in distress routine where he was asking random people at the gym to help spot for him, and then ended up getting kicked out of Planet Fitness because they recognized him as Steven Crowder. It was very satisfying to watch the gym manager be like, "Have a nice day, Steven," because like yeah.
Great story.
And then apparently a trans person came out on Twitter and said that Steven
likes to fuck trannies and all that shit. Yeah,
transgender folks.
Sorry,
He likes to fuck transgender teenagers.
Hey, I gotta go. We gotta go. We're wrapping this up. Hey guys, all new episode. My boss is yelling at me. Convos in the Pedicab. Andrew, how do